today? You mean, I mean, of late, this thing is getting very interesting. So the thing that I'm watching for TLT is this chart, 11571, somewhere around this number. I think this should happen. Most likely, this is where TLT will bottom out. What does that mean? Uh, I think by now it's pretty clear that recession is pretty much clear now. It's going to happen now. Couple of things that are actually and then the banks, the way that the banks are trading now, it actually makes sense to see what's happening in the bank, in the financial sector. So we all know banks uh, borrow money from the Fed and lend the same money to others on uh, for interest. So how does that work? Now, banks borrow rates on a short-term basis and lend on a long-term basis, right? So, to make matters simple. So let's say bank borrows at a 2-year rate and lends out at a 10-year rate, right? So now, usually the way it worked, or the way it should work, is the 2-year rate, the banks, the rate at which the banks borrow should be less than 10-year, the rate at which uh, uh, the banks lend. Right? So that business model makes sense when the banks are borrowing at a lesser cost and lending at a higher rate. So now, what is happening with the yield curve inverting? Banks are able to borrow at a higher rate than they are able to lend. And that's the reason I believe that banks are trading the way that they are trading. So banks won't be able to make money in that scenario. That's why you see the when you see the yield curve inversion. That's what that is happening. That's the recessionary sign, and that's the reason the banks are trading. I believe that's the reason the banks are trading the way that they are trading, which is not good. Now, what is so far with the 10-year pushing up? This thing, the 10-year has been pushing up. This is a monthly chart, by the way, and the 10-year has cleared its 200, which it wasn't able to do in quite a bit of time. Now the the 10-year has cleared its 200 and pushing to the upside. It wasn't able to do that in a long, long, long time. Now, the thing is, the expectation from this chart is to follow its long term, which it has denied so far. So it has denied this long term trend. This is the number, this is the line. It has denied that now. Right here, it has spiked above that 200 moving average. Now the TLT, I believe. No, okay. Before I get into the TLT, now what will happen is that this is a happy scenario. Actually, if this line punctures this 200 moving average and continue its march upward, this is an happy scenario. Why is that happy scenario? Because in this event, when the 10-year is actually pushing up and the 2-year is actually pushing down, or rather 10-year tries to stay above the 2-year, that is a happy path. That means we have averted the recession in theory. If the 10-year keeps pushing up, with, and if the 10-year keeps better than 10-year yield is better than 2-year yield, that means the inversion of the yield curve wouldn't happen. And in theory, that will keep us away from, or the keep the economy away from the recession. That's the theory that people are looking at right now. So, and most likely that will fail, and the yield curve inversion will happen. But for now, Fed is raising the interest rate so that the 10-year keeps pushing up. And should 10 years substantially keep up or higher than the 2-year, in the theoretical recession, Fed can avoid the theoretical recession. In the process, where the 10-year is pushing higher, the markets will kind of take a hit. The financial, i.e., the stock market will take a hit. Cool. Now, this is when the Fed is trying to raise the rates and 10-year keeps pushing up, and the stock market's taking a hit. That is a good thing. That is a good thing. For now, when the stock market is pulling back, that's a healthy pullback. That's normal. That is awesome. Now, here's a problem. This 10-year and this TLT hits a bottom right around here, on 115 or something, and people start going back into the bonds, bringing this number down. And this number, the 10-year, when the people will start to buy bonds somewhere around here, 115, 90, 116, whatever number, when this hits 200, people will start to buy the bonds again, and this yield curve will start to come back down. And that is when the bigger problem will start to arise. When the yield curve comes down, obviously the stock market will start to push up, but then that will lead to a recession in a longer term. So right now, the way things are looking like, we are the market is sort of pricing in a recession, maybe 9 months out, maybe 8 to 9 months out. Market is pricing recession that way. So that's my theory on this, and that's the reason I wanted to start with this. Going to have to rewatch tonight's session. My mind is right now blown. Yep, yep. So this is my theory right now, and then I'm working on that theory. I'm looking at TLT, watching all of this stuff, and then this to me is a pretty important number now. The TLT on a monthly, the 200 moving average is sitting around 11516, right about here. Whatever that curve comes down to, most likely it will stick around the same number, 11590 or somewhere around that. So keep a close eye on this number, right? So again, the theory is when this bottoms out, when TLT bottoms out, till then you can actually short TLT. Till then you can actually short TLT. And when the TLT bottoms out and the yield curve starts to come back down, that's when the 10-year will start to push down below 2-year, and that's when the yield curve will fully invert, and that's when we will have this thing start to when the markets will start to uh, take note of that in a recessionary manner. So that's the theory here. And if you're watching the TLT, this is the high grade bonds, and also keep an eye on junk bonds, right? So don't really have to get into all of this nitty gritty and all that, but keep an eye on this stuff. This is important stuff. Most likely tomorrow looks like the yield curve will once again try to calm down a bit around two. I don't believe 266, but still, this needs to calm down a bit. This is running red hot. So tomorrow, I think a 10-year will take a breather. Let's load daily. Let's look at 10-year. So I think 10-year, well, right here, like this doji, 10-year will try to do another doji, probably come back down to 2.8. I don't see it going below, and if we get lucky, this might touch 2.75. So this is what I'm watching for tomorrow. Average looks like it is taking a breather, and a breather is a good thing here. It's been running wild here, right? And this thing, it's a good thing to take a breather about here. Point 0.8 something doesn't mean so. Good good thing would be to test 2.80 and probably come back down to 2.7574, whatever this number is. This would be a good thing, cool thing. And right, and then look at this thing. Watching Bitcoin is getting, I don't know if at this point if it's even worth watching Bitcoin or whatnot. But why am I bringing this up is because tax season is done by and large. So people who might have wanted to sell for tax purposes might have sold out of Bitcoin for tax purposes. And most likely, if a rally or if a market turns around comes, then Bitcoin will be picked up pretty decent here. Uh, think if we can look for a Bitcoin bounce right about here, uh, 39.1, 38.8. This would be a good spot for Bitcoin to bounce. I think Bitcoin will push into 41. Uh, then if it can clear here, then Bitcoin will push into 42.3. Let's see how that works out. Uh, and it should bounce off of some solid level. Until that happens, it's a little difficult for Bitcoin to actually rally. But but what I'm saying is, by and large, tax season is completed. So there's a good bit of, rather better than good bit. There's a decent chance that Bitcoin might actually push up into, I don't know, probably 42, something like that, or at least it needs to push into 42. Yeah, let's put that, round that up at 42. So we are still looking at a good 2,000, 2.25 thousand, somewhere around that range. And if it can clear this number right here, around mean, then probably we could look for a push into this number, 48, by the end of April, right about here. So let's watch this space. I am watching Bitcoin pretty much, to rather, if the market rallies, Bitcoin will rally along with it, or rather, even if the Bitcoin rallies, the markets will rally along with it. So let's see which one pushes first. Okay, and then this another one is that the Tesla. There was another one. Just give a second. Remember which one is. Why did US oil come down? It was 109 actually. Wasn't 104. Okay. There was one that I was watching which actually which gave a sell signal. So we'll plot it later when I remember. And let's get into uh, futures. So futures selling off, fair enough, nothing too crazy here. But overbought, broke the super trend, nothing too crazy here. This looks pretty decent sell off. I think it should stabilize here and come back into its 543.68. Not much. Most likely will push into 43.78. Not looking beyond that right now. Again, futures, we will assess this thing in the morning. So roughly try to point out where the futures are. Yeah, more than likely futures will make a comeback, at least to its 5 and 8, and then most likely, and tomorrow even SPX should do the same thing. We were looking for this number on, I think, Thursday. We didn't get that, but I think futures will push down. Markets will open somewhere around here tomorrow. This is the daily. Right. So exactly, this is where the markets, the 50, this is where the markets will open up tomorrow. Futures should bounce around here. If they fail somewhere, then 43, 45 next. But I think this should be a good bounce spot for this one, futures. And then looking at the same thing, exactly same thing for the markets. So this is where my expectation was for the markets to push into. We were looking for this 30 points down to the downside. Thursday we didn't get that for some reason. It stopped somewhere around here. Still trying to figure out why did that happen. Don't have a really good answer for that. Even on the monthly, I think it's looking like 42.98 somewhere on that number. Uh, Will we get there? I doubt it. I doubt it. By the time this number rolls around, I think by and large the yield curve will start to come back down. So right now, I think tomorrow the markets will open somewhere around here. Even if they don't open because the futures are flattening out, I still believe the markets will go down to this number and do their pilgrimage here, and then we should bounce again. For SPY, this is the number that it should open around at 435.28. And if that fails, we are pushing into this number right here, 42.80. And this will mark the uh, not really the exact lows. The lows were somewhere around here, 41 something here. So I should we price in that number? I don't know if we should. But for now, this is what we're looking for. The base case to the downside of 43.58. And then most likely if it pushes from down from there, 42.81. This is how it should go tomorrow. Let's open up. One point that I want you guys to take a note of is these candles right here. These are Heikan-Ashi, so let's go the regular candles. So these candles, I want you guys to take a note of. This was, I mean, to say the least, that the last week was horrendous to trade. because the moment you're trying to figure out which direction the market will pick up or which direction a stock will pick up, you just gotta, flushed out from that position. Look here, this one is an obvious red day, very obvious. We were able to trade this one, but then look at this one. It's a bearish engulfing candle by a mile. This candle was totally engulfed by this candle, this is a bearish engulfing candle simply because it encompasses or uh, hey Brian, can you hear me, Brian? Well, thank you. So this candle, Monday, was it Monday? I'm pretty sure it was Monday. 14, right, 11. So Monday, this is what happened. The range was about from 44.08 and to 44.63, about 60 points range. And the next day, Tuesday, the range was 44.71. We call this top to a T on Tuesday. This was pretty much predictable trade. And then to the downside, 43.81. So this was about 90 points, 60 points, 90 points. Then look at this candle. So you have a bearish engulfing candle. The next day, you would expect the markets to kind of push down at least or open lower at least somewhere here. That did not happen. It was a green day. No reason, rhyme, logic, nothing. You can't really make this. So you can't really trade this kind of thing. Then you would expect at least a green day or with a in a lower range day. But no, this was the freaking giant red day again. And this thing is again a bearish engulfing candle. So usually what happens in a bearish engulfing candle is you will open lower, at least you would open lower and then try to push lower, and then usually that's the trend. The bearish engulfing candle open lower, try to push lower and close lower. That's what needs to happen. But God knows what tomorrow brings. My expectation is that it will push down into this number about here, 4360. We will reconsider the situation here. We will reassess the situation here. My expectation is to bounce from around here, 4360. How far we will bounce, I don't know. So let's bring in the indicators. Uh, right about here. So if the market pushes down to 4360 and try to bounce from there, so I think it should at least try and come into this number 4418. 70 to 80 point moves to the upside. I don't know how to read this again, but looks like we will snap back again from that number. There's a very good chance that will bounce here. The markets will bounce here, 43.58, 43.60 number. Uh, but uh, it can't say with confidence, given the recent price action. Can't say with confidence, but most likely this is my base case to the downside. And then if the markets continue pushing down, then we'll look for 42.80. But this is where I'm expecting the markets to bounce. And how far the bounce will push into, most likely this black line. And this is a 50 moving average, 44.18. Let's round it up as 44.20. So 40 points plus 20, 80 points, 60 points to the upside. Should that break to the upside, then looking for a push into 44.30. But we will reassess the situation tomorrow. Sounds good. Looks good. About 43.90. Yeah, this is where it is hitting. So let's see. Let's see. I think it stopped here for this reason, and we'll figure out 43.41. I am not pricing in that number right now. I'm pricing in this number 43.50, 43.60, and let's see. 43.40, maybe if that breaks, 43.60 breaks, then 43.40 is next number, and 43.25 should be absolute bottom if it comes down here. I am not plotting anything below that right now. So base case to the downside, 43.58. Should that break, think 43.40, and absolute bottom should be here, 43.25. That's what I'm watching. For SPY, 430. Well, SPY is again an ETF just based on SPX, so we can derive those numbers from the number that we have here. So that's what I'm looking for in right now. Futures are hitting that number to a T, and I'm expecting the futures to come back from here. Cool thing. Again, I am still unable to remember which one was that. It was a good one. That was Amazon. I can't remember. I can't seem to remember which one was that. I can't seem to remember which one was that. It was a clear shot. One of them was a clear shot. I can't seem to remember. Because on that, when I was charting, there was a clear uh, push down on the MACD side of things for that. It was a clear shot or short. I just can't seem to remember which one is that. Anyways, let's go back to what we know, what we do best. Microsoft, first thing. Not seeing a whole lot of upside here, uh, rather downside. I'm not seeing a whole lot of downside right now. Uh, Again, so it seems to be bottoming out. Maybe one day red, or one more day of red, or one more day of some sort of consolidation, because the money flow index is still pointing down. That's the only reason I'm saying that. But otherwise, technicals look like they are about to make a push up. Let's see what the monthly looks like. 267, 269. So this is how I want to play Microsoft. So first, to the downside, obviously, because market will open to the downside. Then I will look for an upside for Microsoft, and most likely push into 285. This is the number I'm looking for Microsoft. And if that holds, then 289 is what I'm looking for. 285, 289. And to the downside, we will look to continue to push into this 258. I don't know if this number is achievable so far, but if the earnings start to come back really bad, especially on the Netflix side of things, Netflix will push down and it will pull down entire tech sector with it. So Netflix is again particularly vulnerable to the downside, but this is a big but right about here. Looks like any slimmer or slimmer of good number will push Netflix to the upside. As the technicals are sitting there, it is showing as oversold. So I think it will push into 370, or at least push into 360 if the earnings come in good. But after that, I most certainly think that Netflix will push into, or if the numbers come in bad, I think Netflix will push into 303, this number, and then later push into 266. Not looking for that number just yet, but whenever Nasdaq starts to push down, then it will happen. Netflix is particularly vulnerable, so this is still to the downside. But meanwhile, look at this thing. It has created a gap here from 418 whatnot down to this number here. And I think it should try to somehow come into this gap. Might not happen right away, but this is wide open. Either the technicals need to push down to meet this number, or the price needs to come up to this number. In either case, from where Netflix is, it will have an upside. So that's the reason I'm watching Netflix on a weekly basis. Looks like there is something to Netflix here. Again, earnings. I don't like lottos. I don't play lottos. I don't like that kind of stuff. Uh, I ate a bit of ice cream. Not sitting well with me. Right. So uh, Netflix is one of the ones that is sort of if tech is kind of hinging on this number now. Netflix earnings. If Netflix earnings come in bad, or even if the not even not even bad, if how should I put it? If market believes that if market deems that the Netflix earnings are bad, and if markets start to push Netflix down, then Nasdaq will have a full-blown crisis short term. It will pull down the entire tech sector with it, and the tech sector is a larger portion of the markets given these days. So that's the reason it will pull down the entire market with it. Not saying that will happen. I think Netflix will kind of bounce into the earnings, but then still, these are not numbers like you could predict like the entire last year or something. The markets to go up and up and up. Not those kind of numbers these days. So still, this is very much a possibility. 330 is a very, very, very decent possibility here. Will it bounce? Will it kind of bounce again from here? Yeah, because it will kind of be hitting this third standard deviation. So more than likely, there's a chance if it comes down here, it will bounce from here again. Watch out for that. Will I be playing this? No, I don't, because I don't like uncertainty. I just don't like it. Even if I play these earnings, so the way that I would be playing is I would be buying calls around here. Rather, I'd be buying puts here and paying for those puts by selling puts here, and I'll be buying calls here. I'll be paying for those calls by selling probably this one or this strike. That's how I'll play this one, and I should be able to do that because the volatility will be high. So the IV, based on IV, I should be able to get some good premium. Even if I don't want to get involved, I can still sell this strike here, and should be able to collect the premiums. That's how I want to play that. I don't want to be open just buying a call or a put. I want to be able to pay for those before I buy those. So that's how I want to play. Looking to Tesla. Tesla has earnings again on 20th. Tesla has a history of running up into the numbers. And let's open up Tesla technicals. Tesla has a history of running up into the earnings, and if not expecting anything different this time again. To the downside, 976 is my base case. Should that break, and it has been testing that number for days now. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday did not test that, but for all these 3 days last week, all throughout, it's been testing that number. Most likely, it will test that again. 975 is my base case to the downside. If it pushes below there, 968 is where it should bounce. If the bounce is, at least the bounce should come into this number, that 975. It should push down into 968. It should bounce into 975. We will reassess the situation there. Same thing, same thing. And not looking for a push. Well, again, to the upside, so let's put it this way. To the upside, 1004, good to have would be this one, 1017. And push into 1031 should be the top if it comes here. Push into 1031 should be the top if it comes up here. Or will I be looking to short? No, I won't. And this is actually the number that I'm watching for Tesla, the downside, 971. This is where it should bounce, actually, 960. This is the mean on the weekly. If it breaks below the mean, it is pushing into this number, 940, and then probably into 925. So this is the mean that I'm watching on the daily. If it hits 9, breaks below here, it should bounce somewhere around here, 970, 960, somewhere around here. And then if it pushes below here, 960, this is where it should bounce. And if it after the bounce, it should come back down. Or earnings week, who knows? The bounce will continue probably into 1031 or something. But if it breaks below 960, this is where it is headed, and most likely it will hit this number, 925 or something. That's what I'm watching for Tesla. Earnings are the caveat. Again, play. This is again like lotto again. So comes back down, hits the number, breaks here, pushes down. It's a 21, pushes down into this number, 924. At least that's the thesis. Tesla has a history of running up into the number and push down uh, after the earnings report. So let's see right about here. Right about here. And same thing, back down, pushed up into the earnings, came right back down after the earnings. So nothing different this time again, expecting the same exact performance from Tesla, running up into the earnings, coming back down after the earnings. So that's my expectation from Tesla. Again, if I get involved, if I want to play Tesla, that's exactly how it play Tesla. Probably sell puts here, and then buy puts here, and to the upside, probably buy puts here, buy calls here, sell calls here. That's how I want to play Tesla. And this is the big one. How was that? Apple. Apple. Everyone is watching Apple for this number. So we got here. This is an awesome one. We found 21 support, and the bounce off of this. I don't believe this is going to last for a long time. It has to come back down and push into this number, most likely 163.16, somewhere around that number. So let's reassess. So to the downside, this is my base case, 165, 20, 30, whatever this number is. And let's plot that on the daily side as well. Well, so the bottom should be, if it breaks here, 163.30, then I think it should bottom out here, 161.30. I don't believe Apple is going to go down below this number tomorrow if it comes down to that. 63 is, yeah, it has to bounce somewhere around here, 163 number first. If that bounce fails, we are looking for a push into 161. And this 158.30, this should be absolute bottom. I don't believe it's going to go down there tomorrow unless something really goes bad with earnings or whatnot. But I don't believe this is going to happen tomorrow. But it should happen. This would be a healthy correction to happen if it comes down here. Not don't believe this is going to happen tomorrow, at least. markets were to open right now, I think it should open somewhere around here, 164, something around that. 43.63, and futures bounce just as expected. There you go. And this will be tested 43.69 momentarily, and then I think there's enough ammo here. First it will hit this and reject, and if after the reject, if it comes back, then it is pushing into this number 43.78. Now I'm slowly figuring out what is a bear flag and why is that called a bear flag. You know, people see this kind of action and they say bear flag, trying to figure out why is that a bear flag, and this gives you pretty much decent insight as to why this is called a bear flag. And many a times, many people, try to tell me there's a bear flag, whatnot, but they were unable to give me an answer or a good insight or a coherent, understanding of why this is called a bear flag. Most likely, I'm trying to figure out that this is the reason it's called a bear flag. When it leaves its key moving averages and detaches itself from the moving averages and pushes back into that moving average just to test that moving average, and then pushes down. So that's the reason so far that's my theory, that's the reason it is called a bear flag. That's how a bear flag is generated. I'm yet to see a bull flag because since the time I've been following these candles or this pattern, I did not see a full-fledged bull flag. I'm assuming it is just the opposite of this thing to the downside. So let's see how that plays out. And it's always good to have the reasoning behind whatever that you know. And now I think I'm developing that understanding. Okay, Facebook. Again, a lot is hinging on Netflix right now. This thing is looking good here, still looking good, still looking good. One more push to the upside into 221 and perhaps into 233. But we'll keep a close watch on Netflix. And this thing will decide a lot of how tech will behave going forward. And besides all of this, the first couple of points that we discussed about interest rates and TLT and how that's going to affect the recession fears and whatnot, that will drive the markets, I believe, rather than everything else. This will be temporary. Netflix results will be temporarily. This will affect whichever way Netflix will affect the markets. Tech will get affected that way. And let's plot Google, and we are plotting these big names because simply these 4 or 5 big names will, in fact, 3 big names, if it happens that way, that will affect the entire market. So that's the reason we're plotting these 3 first. So clearly in a push down trend, and I think a breather is not out of the question. Big red bars, nice big red bars. I think it should peak out and give us a green bar or at least a pale red bar here. That doesn't mean that this is done yet. I think it will complete the cycle to the downside. When will that happen? I think it will continue to happen. But tomorrow, I'm expecting, after coming back down, where is that number? Here. Right now, the futures are hitting that number, 43.58 or whatnot, and bouncing off of this number right here. So I think the push will continue to the upside. And if the markets were open, I think these stocks would have bottomed out the same way. These stocks should have bottomed out the same way. And most likely, I think a bounce is in order pretty much. Uh, but don't wanna right now say that yeah, there is a bounce and this is how we want to play that bounce or whatnot. Simply want to wait till the markets open, simply want to see the technicals in the market. But if the markets were to be open right now, I would have been playing the bounce. bounce into 25.57 and then most likely into 25.65. This is the range, another 20 points to the upside. Then, depending on the market conditions, we would be looking to play to the downside again. The average is still pointing to the downside. This was just an ephemeral bounce and whatnot. Averages are still pointing to the downside. So we'll look for another ephemeral bounce on just like this candle right here. Then probably we'll chug along to the downside. All right, so that's and I want to short this thing. Crowd, I want to short crowd. Most likely back into 229. Not a whole lot, but yeah. So if crowd comes back down to this number, it will be a good bounce here. 29.80, whatever this number is, 229. This will hit here and bounce. If it turns out to be an ephemeral bounce, how much ever it will bounce after that, then if it's an ephemeral bounce, then we'll look for a push down into 226. And the mean is lying somewhere around here, around 221. Will it happen? Well, bear market, yeah. More than likely, this will come back down into its mean. It has been a high flyer, so expecting if it starts to come back down and break its 200, then I think it will push into this 221 number. Left, it's 5, and then come back down into 234. Whatever this number should break it and test this number here, 231. So look for a bounce here. A failed bounce will push into this number, 231. Let's go back into the other ones. Chip sector. It's giving a giant uh, red candle here on the weekly. I strongly believe this is where it will start to bounce. First bounce, 29.78. I think we still got about a good 50 points to the downside. So look for that and look for a bounce here. It should bounce at least, even if it's an ephemeral bounce, we'll take it. 29.86 first bounce point. 29.83, whatever this number is, it is on the weekly. This should be the first bounce point. And yeah, yeah. So I think this is where it should bounce. 29.80 on the monthly, and I think that should come back down a couple of points into this number, 29.78, something like that, and it should give us a good bounce point here. And SMH, yeah, it should give us a good bounce spot here, 234, somewhere around this number. It should give us a good bounce spot, and I think Nvidia should be a very good bounce spot here, 203. It will bounce here. Alongside the chip sector, it will bounce about here, 203. And AMD, and most people will want to play this number. AMD has come down nice, okay. This NVIDIA. Why is it changing everything? It has come down into its number. Will it push into this number? I don't know. I don't know. There's a very good chance, but we don't want to plot that right now. We want to be looking for what is immediately in front of us. SMH and SOX. So looks like First bounce will come here. Very good chance of this coming around here. 2578, whatever this number is, this will bounce here, and SMH should actually bounce here. SMH has a good bit of room to the upside, and Nvidia, this will be a clear bounce for Nvidia. I don't doubt that. And AMD, if this sector bounces, AMD will bounce. LRCX being one of the ones that I want to play. This looks like a prime candidate for bounce. So this is the one that I'm eyeing. If the market bounces, it has come back down to its level where it bounced last time, and this should be a good bounce spot. And it has showing all the signs of oversold, and right now here the SMI is about to cross. So watching this one clearly, and looking for a bounce on LRCX. On semiconductor, this is another one that you want to be watching if you are has curled up and it is hitting a major moving average. And if SMH, if the chip sector pushes up, and we'll have a 54 and then a clear hit into 54.92. So watch on semiconductor as well. Looking for a push into 54.62, and if that clears, most likely a push into 57.20. Watch for semi, and this is to the upside. Don't know if I want to plot it to the downside here, but let's see. The downside 50.72. So if the markets were to be open again, if this stock would have been trading here, 50.72, most likely a bounce around here or on semiconductor. This is again not a high beta stock, and if you're into a low beta stock on a chip sector, this is your friend. Micron, well, again, this is also a good one. Uh, Again, this is not a high beta stock, and if you are into, it should bounce somewhere around here, 69.80. Last time it bounced there. So looking for a bounce, and I think 72 should be achievable for Micron tomorrow, the upside. Not well, not really pricing in a 58 right now. Most likely a bounce should be around 60, 68. If the markets were to be open, I think it will base around here, 67, 68. This number should be hitting right about now for Micron as well. 64, not really pricing in 64, but if the market pushes down beyond 43.60, then 64.37 is probably up for Micron. Any other stocks that you guys are watching? Merck, MRK. Let's look at Merck. Yeah, Merck looks good. I think pharma is, I think pharma people have been hedging with pharma this past I think downturn. Many of the people have been hedging with pharma. All the pharma like Lilly and Merck and whatnot, they've been pushing higher. Uh, and anything that falls into pharma or healthcare sector has been pushing up. I think tomorrow all of these names will take a breather, like Merck and whatnot. The stochastic has given a sell signal here, right about here. Excuse me. Allergies. So, yeah, I think it should take a breather here. It is quite a bit oversold here. Overbought, sorry. Quite a bit overbought here. Thank you. Thank you. It's been quite a bit overbought here. Breather is a good thing, and if it can come down below its 5 and hit it 8 again this time, it has been bouncing off of its 8 on the daily, and if it hits this 8 again, I think there's a good bit. I think you can conclude that it will come back down to its 84 and then probably 83.40 should happen. And this is more like this. I think Merck should, in fact, not Merck, United Health. I think it should come back in. I think it should come back in and test this number here. It left its mean on the daily quite far, and it has to come back in. Mean is sitting somewhere around here, 515 or something. I think United Health, when this was happening, we were looking for a downside. It came right back into its 8. It pushed up. I think it should come back in again. 535. Oh, it did come back into 535. So this was never sustainable. This had to come back in, and I think it should break here and test this number again and the 532 something. If it fails here, this time I think it should push back down into its 21. 520. Very good chance of that happening. So look for that United Health to the downside. Right about here, 524. It has to come back in. This is on the monthly, and on the monthly, what is it doing? Wait for this crossover if you want to actually go long short. So wait for this crossover, then you can do that right about here. But I strongly believe that this has to come back down. And then what was the other one? Yeah. All of these names, all of the pharma names, they tried to push up, and I think they should come back down actually. BA again, earnings what 27th? I don't know. This one is I don't really know how to categorize this thing. This is a defense contractor, and yet it is not behaving as a defense contractor. It is a consumer side of story. It is not behaving as like one of those. So I don't know how to actually trade this. The average is still pointing to the downside, but we had one good day here. I think it should give us another good day to the upside. 184 to the upside. 184 is the base case, and let's see if we can get a downside base case. 180 to the downside base case. 184 to the upside base case. And I think we should get one more good day out of if it can clear here, 185, 70, whatever this mean is. Right about here, it hit the mean and came back down. And if it can clear its base case, 184, and hit the mean again, very, very good chance it will hit 188 or whatever this number is right about here, 187. Yeah, let's round it up at 188. So if it clears that, it's going to go hit 188. But if it can't, the downside again is 180.99. Should it break below that, 180.36. Should it break below that, 179.47. But I'm expecting one more good day out of Boeing at least. Then let's go into AbbVie. Yeah, same thing, same exact thing. It is overbought and it has to come back down. Wait for this to happen. Wait for this to clear up, and yeah, it is still a good short. It has to come back down. Usually, what happens is it gets overbought and comes right back into its 5, comes right back into its 8, runs up and comes right back there. So that is exactly what is happening with these candles right now. Got a doji here, overbought conditions, and most likely 158 will be tested to the downside, and if that breaks, 148 will be tested to the downside for AbbVie. It bounced to a T here. Well, looks like we'll get one more good day to the upside. 164.50. Let's round that up at 164.50 to the upside. But here it needs to clear this number, 163.70. If it clears 163.70, which is the mean, then we are hitting about here 165. Let's round that up at 165. And to the downside, if that after the bounce, if it continues to push the downside, and this is where it is going, 158. So if it, let's say if it breaks below here, 159 to the downside, and then it should test this number 157. If that breaks, 154 and 153.60. This is the path to the downside. If it clears this number here, 150, 164 something, this is the base case to the upside. Then we're looking for a push into 168 for AbbVie. And this is whatever charting we are doing. This is good for tomorrow, or whatnot. But the first thing we talked about, the interest rates and how that ties up into the whole process of recession. That I think is a larger picture. I think that is something. If you want to take away something from this charting session, that's the point that you need to be taking away. All of this stuff, day-to-day stuff, we can chart that will keep changing, whatnot. But the bigger picture, keep in mind with TLT and the 10-year and how the market reacts to the junk bond, TLT, and the interest rates, and the inversion of the yield curve. All right, so that's pretty much it. That is all I got for now. Anything, if anybody has to offer, please go ahead. Yeah, cat got me really bad. Cat got me really bad. So this all happened on cat, right? Luckily, I was thinking about how things, are playing out for cat. I was able to get out with profits, but cat got me really bad. I don't know, in a downward market, who was expecting this fucking thing to push up $10, $12? I don't know. I don't know. But it did that. And good thinking on my part, I saw this thing hitting here. I went short again here and made a good downside trade. One good downside trade and one bad downside trade. Well, got out with small profits, but yeah, profit is profit. But yeah, did not make a whole lot of sense for this thing to push beyond its ATR, twice its ATR actually, and ran up right into this number. And of course, a little bit further and then push down. So uh, this looks like another Walmart sort of a story, and it's been getting pushed down from there. Did that, and it came right back down and hit its 100 and pushed up. And let's see, 246. Well, not out of the question. 246 is not out of the question. So how do I want to play this? Tomorrow we'll decide if this thing can hold above this line. If not, we'll play it to the downside for right about here, 217 or something like that, 217, 218. This was one of the very strong stocks on Thursday. Even I think last week, it did very good. Uh, and one more thing that I want to point out is that cat SPX. Let's pull these by on the monthly. Right, yeah, this is what I wanted to point out. Uh, so this side is Haikanashi, and this side is the regular candles. So now, usually, seasonally, this is supposed to be a green candle. This is not supposed to be a red candle seasonally. So far, it's been green candle, and this is worrying a lot of people. This right here, this trend is worrying a lot of people. It's been half the month, and it is kind of still red, and it is giving a doji right here. So this candle is worrying a lot of people. Uh, will it push down into this number 428? Good possibility, but this candle is seriously worrying. This candle. So usually, my thought process is, SPY 431 may or may not happen, but this candle needs to close green. We had a bullish candle on March. This was supposed to be a red candle, but the average is showing red. Here is the difference. That's the reason I pulled out, side by side. This candle on Haikanashi is still showing a green candle. This is good. This is bad. So make whatever you will of this. Uh, but April seasonally is supposed to be a green month. But on the Haikanashi, the average is still showing green. The average is still pointing to the upward. So yeah, make whatever you will of this thing. Just wanted to point that out. I don't really have a take on that. I still think that tomorrow will decide. Earnings season will decide whichever way it is going to go. It is going to go. But any good news, any bit of good news will push the stocks up. We are still gonna go down after this push up. This is just uh, one of those times where it's not really clear as to what is happening. But I think after this, after once the yield curve starts to come back down, probably I don't know, in a month or two, whenever the yield curve will start to come back down, maybe after in a couple of weeks, whenever that happens, I think after that we'll still see the markets push down. Then for now, there's still hope that April will come out positive because the average is still green. This is what I wanted to point out. And yeah, that's pretty much it from me. Many banks and institutions reporting Monday. It's going to be a fun week. Yeah, it is going to be a big week. Take care, Brian. Yeah, I've been reading that, Al. That is, yeah, uh, true. I've been reading those reports, and both Bank of America and this thing. What is that? Wells Fargo. Both of their credit card usage is up. It will be. We're done recording.